Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another Books and Looks video. If you are new here and this is the first video you've seen, my Books and Looks videos are just what they sound like. I talk about books that I have recently read while I put my makeup on for the day. Two things that I love blended together. If you are returning and you've seen some of my other videos, thank you so much for coming back and watching more. I hope that means that you enjoy what you see and hear, and we'll maybe check out some others after you're done watching this one. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Let's get started. I apologize, my hair's wet. So, I don't know, maybe when I put this headband in, it may mess me up. I don't know, whatever. I guess it is what it is, right? It doesn't really matter. Here we are. So, my book today is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. Karen M. McManus. This is a young adult, like high school level mystery that so many people have been recommending to me for years. I've had students recommend it to me. I have had colleagues recommend it to me. It was published in 2017, so it's about 6 years old now. I finally gave it a read, and I liked it. I don't know if I could say I loved it, but the problem is it was spoiled for me, okay? So I in my class, I'm a teacher if you didn't know. I teach literature, and in order to promote reading among my students is I offer extra credit when students read a book and then come into class and talk about it. So this was one that one of my students read, came into class, talked about it. And so she told the whole story. She asked first, she's like, can I tell how the story ends and what the twist is at the end of the book? And I was like, go for it. Like, it's fine. If I ever read it, it's okay if I know how it ends. It doesn't bother, spoilers don't bother me. So she explained how it ended and everything, and on the big twist at the end. So I knew going in who done it and like why and how and all of that. It did not ruin the book for me at all. Although if I hadn't known, I don't know if I may have figured it out because there were lots of clues and they weren't super subtle in my opinion. But again, I knew who it was going in, so it's hard to say. Maybe they were subtle if I didn't already know. I don't know. I guess we'll never know if I would have figured it out or not because I already knew it. But the story is about the death of this student. So there were these five students, there were five students, and they all ended up in detention together one day after school. And I read the little thingy in the back where the author like talks about her writing process and her inspiration. And it's cool because I recognized what she was inspired by. She was inspired by the Breakfast Club, if you're familiar, the 80s movie with Molly Ringwald and Chad Michael Murray. Is that right? I don't know. And the one Estevez guy when he was younger, and oh, what's her name? I know. It was inspired by the Breakfast Club. So it was, these five students. They were all very different kids. They didn't really know each other. And they all end up in detention together. And the one kid, Simon, who was like in this story, he's the outcast that nobody likes, but he has started a couple years ago like a gossip website or a gossip like Twitter feed or something. I don't remember. It was like a newsletter almost that he sent out to the whole school, just filled with gossip. I don't know how he got away with it. But anyway, and everybody knew it was him. And he would share all this terrible news. So he ends up dying. He is allergic to peanuts, and somehow peanut oil got into his cup. And like when they were in detention, he like got a cup out of the little water fountain or whatever, just like a freebie cup thingy and some water. And he died from, I'm not laughing. I mean, I'm laughing because I know how it ends, but he died because he has a severe peanut allergy. And so when he drank this water, it apparently somebody had put peanut oil in the cup so that when he drank it, he died. the bad kid who was like the known drug dealer, and then there was the jock who was a baseball player, and he was like really well known, and he was in line to get free, like full scholarships to play ball at like these big wig schools. And then the other one was this girl who was, she wasn't like was she a cheerleader? I don't remember if she was a cheerleader or not, but she was like the pretty girl, princess girl who was like really popular, and her boyfriend was really popular, and like everybody knew, like they were like the it couple of the school, right? Well, the reason they were all in detention was because in this one class, this one teacher is like, no phones. If I see a phone, you have detention. And they all got in trouble on the same day for having phones in their backpacks or something. Like somehow this teacher found them all having phones on the same day. So they all got detention with him, that Tuesday or whatever it was. So they all ended up that's how they all ended up in detention. So the EpiPens were missing. They all had, and like none of them had their phones. Like these were not their phones. They were telling me these are not my phones. I didn't put this there. We were framed, da 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 da. So that was suspicious. The missing EpiPens was suspicious. And then also like the teacher, perfect timing. There was a fender bender outside, and he leaves the room just at the right time that Simon happened to take a drink from the water with the peanut oil in it. So everybody thinks that these 4 kids are the primary suspects. So the whole story is them figuring out which one of them done it. Hence, one of us is lying, because they're all like, I didn't do it, it wasn't me. But they all had secrets, and they all had a reason to not like Simon, because they slowly figure out that Simon was about to send out a new newsletter that had information about all of them. So they all had like something that they had, some secret. So the girl that was like the valedictorian girl, last school year, she was failing, I want to say chemistry. I'm pretty sure it was chemistry. And she cheated. So she was failing, and then all of a sudden she like turned around and she was like, oh, I just really studied. I really put my best foot forward, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, she somehow found the teacher's paperwork, and so she got all the tests and homework and everything, all the answers, and she cheated her way through the rest of the school year. And so that was her big secret that Simon was about to release, because like the police somehow like tracked it, and they found, oh no, what it was her sister, the real smart girl, her sister was like a hacker by hobby, and so she hacked into it and figured out that Simon had this thing ready to go that revealed that she cheated in chemistry, and that's the only reason she did well, right? So that's a big deal. And then the baseball player, his big secret was that he was doing steroids, because his like pitch grew or got better, improved. Words. His pitch improved by like 8 miles per hour over the span of like 3 months, and they're like, that's not possible, blah blah blah. So he's on steroids. So that's the big secret that Simon was going to reveal. But as it turns out, that was false. So he actually wasn't on steroids. He purposely like held back for a while, and then whenever the scouts started coming to the games is when he really started to put his best effort in, right? So it looked like he improved drastically in a short amount of time, when in reality he was always that good. He just wasn't showing his full potential, so that when the scouts came, right? But Simon was going to put out there that he was on steroids. And the weird thing is, as everybody knew, Simon always somehow knew things, and the information, the gossip that he put out there was always true. So whenever it was like steroids, da 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 da, and this kid, I wish I could remember names. I'm so sorry. The baseball player was like thinking to himself whenever he was reading this, like the police were like, this is what he was going to put out about you. It would ruin your college career. It would make it so that you could never play ball again. So you have a good motive to kill him. And then this kid, in his head, he didn't say out loud, he was saying to himself like, oh my gosh, that's what he was going to post? That's not even true. He's like, but it's better than the truth. So I'm just going to go with it and be like, okay, well, I'm not on steroids. I don't know why he would say that, but I'm not on steroids. Of course, everybody denied it. Like even, well, actually no, the valedictorian girl did admit, like, yes, I did cheat. I'm so sorry. And so she admitted to it, but the baseball player was like, that's not true. That did not happen. I don't know why Simon would say that. It's false. I'm not on steroids. You do pee test, blood test, whatever, not on steroids. So he has another secret that comes up way later in the book. Well, maybe not way later, but it comes up later. The delinquent kid, like the local drug dealer kid, he was on probation for selling drugs, okay? And he was not supposed to have any drugs, not supposed to do anything, or he would like go to juvie or whatever. But he was still selling drugs because he had to. His mother abandoned him and like ran off wherever, and he hasn't heard from her. And he lived with his father, who was an alcoholic and was like on disability and barely made any money. So this poor kid, in order to like survive and buy clothes and buy food and pay the bill, he was like trying to live on his own, go to school. So he was not selling drugs because he was like this bad person. It was literally his only way of survival because he couldn't get a job, and this was the only way he could get money, right? So the Simon was going to put out there in this gossip magazine that he was still selling drugs, and like he's going to end up in jail because of it, blah, blah, blah. So that was his secret. So we had the valedictorian, the baseball player, the delinquent, and then the princess girl, like the real popular girl. She has been seeing this really popular boy. Like I said, they're like an it couple. They had been dating for literally 3 years, and like last year at prom or something was the first time they had sex. And then like a month after that, she cheated on him and slept with somebody else. And that was what Simon was going to put in the gossip mag. So she didn't want to like ruin her reputation or like, you know, ruin her relationship, and he would obviously break up with her if she cheated on him. So she had reason to stop Simon as well because she didn't want this information out there. So they come to find out they all had motive to kill Simon before he put the gossip mag out there, because he was about to reveal a big secret that was going to like ruin their lives in some capacity. Well, as it turns out, the baseball player, they eventually come to find out that the baseball player is not on steroids, and what his secret actually is that he's gay, and he has a secret boyfriend that's like a freshman in the local college, which is only like a year difference, like a year and a half difference, so it's not like that's quickie. But he has been like seeing this guy, and he didn't want anybody to know because like, number one, his family, he didn't want to be out yet. So the real secret was that, and somehow they figured out that he was actually gay, and that was his big secret, and that for some reason Simon changed the gossip magazine to not reveal that he was gay, and instead that he was on steroids, which was the only thing that Simon ever put in the gossip magazine that wasn't true. Again, most of this information came out because of the valedictorian sister hacking. She also hacked and found the information about the baseball player being gay, and it being like an old revision that was never published or was never even considered to be published. So everybody was like, why did he change it? All these questions. Like, first of all, you know, who killed him and why? And the valedictorian is like, I'm still suspicious about the car accident. Like, doesn't anybody else think it was a little too perfect if there was a little fender bender outside and the teacher left the room and that's when Simon died? So like, there was no teacher there to confirm. And so everybody's like, yeah, that's true. So they start, everybody meaning the 4 suspects, because they were supposed to stay away from each other, but they were like secretly meeting and like trying to share their information. So when the hacker sister found this information, the 4, or somehow it ended up at the police. So the police went to the 4 of them and were like, you know, we found this information. This is not good for you. This is motive, blah, 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 blah. Well, in the meantime, they're doing all their own investigation and confessing to one another. So like, the delinquent's like, yeah, I have been selling drugs. Like, y'all know I have. Like, I don't understand why it's a secret. Like, I have no reason to kill him except for the fact that he might go to juvie because of it. But He's like, yeah, I have been, but I stopped as soon as this whole thing. So like, there's no way they can prove it because I don't have any of the drugs anymore. I got rid of, my burner phone or whatever. So he's like, I don't have a reason. And then the valedictorian confessed. She's like, yes, I did. And like, she, whatever, like the principal she got in trouble with the principal. She got in trouble with her family, etc. So she confessed and the consequences. And then the pretty girl ended up telling her boyfriend, she's like, the guilt is eating at me. He's going to find out because it's out there. The police have it. It's going to be out there. So she ends up going to him and he dumps her on the spot. And he's like, how dare you? Like, I loved you. I thought you were the one. We were going to be together forever. But as it turns out, in like little bits and pieces throughout the whole story, you recognize that he was like borderline abusive. Like he was controlling. He literally like told her what to wear, and he told her like when they were going to go out and like what parties they were going to go to, and like dictated everything about the relationship. And she didn't really care. She was just like going with it, but it was like borderline abusive. Controlling, it was going to get there. And her sister always wanted her to break up with him, but she's like, no, he's the one. I'm going to be with him forever, blah, 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 blah. So she ends up confessing and he like loses it and he like punches a hole in the wall and just all this stuff and dumps her and then tells everybody that like she's a slut because, she slept with one person, but whatever. So he tells everybody like she's a slut. So her reputation gets ruined. And then the baseball player ends up getting outed and everybody is like, oh my gosh, he's gay. And they're like bullying him and they're bullying the valedictorian as a cheater. And so like everybody's getting bullied, of course, except the delinquent because everybody already knew. So, and then nobody will talk to any of them. So then they're like the only ones sitting with each other at lunch. And like they're all each other have at this point. So they start looking into it, and this becomes national news, okay? And like it's literally on the news, and there's like not like Dateline, but like a Dateline type fictional show does an expose on it and like tells the story. This whole story takes place over the span of like 2 months, I think, from like when the detention and Simon dies up until they figure it out. It's like the span of 2 months. So they do this like expose on this show and basically say like, this happened, this happened, this happened. And so the valedictorian is like, wait a minute, this is an investigative show. This is not just like a news reporting. They're an investigative show. And they're like, if anybody has any information, please share. So the valedictorian gets an idea. Let's talk to this investigative reporter. So she like emails him and sends him information and says like, these things are not being researched by the police, like the car accident. Nobody knows, like the car accident is important and like none of the police officers are looking into it, and they're not looking into, they're just assuming that the EpiPens were stolen by us, but like none of us did this. So the investigative reporter ends up looking into it also. Sort of. They do a little bit, and then they are trying to, the kids are trying to figure out like whose car was it, and then they remember the make and model, and they ask like, can somebody please look into this? Like I think the baseball player's cousin is a police officer or something like that, so they ask him like, can you please tell us who this person is? Which is a little weird. Like what police officer is going to be like, 4 murder suspects, yeah, let me just give them information about the mysterious car. But whatever, we'll just let that slide. So they look into this car themselves, and the valedictorian meets the owner of the car, and the kid who owns it is like, oh yeah, I was paid to go there at this time and create this fender bender at this time in this location. And he's like, and the girl's like, who paid you to do this? And this is when it all comes down, because he said, Simon. What? So Simon paid this kid to show up in his car outside of the detention room and create a distraction by having a fender bender so the teacher would leave the room. Simon created that distraction. So now everyone is thinking like, Why? What is this? Why is he doing this? What is going on? I don't have any lipstick. I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I just won't have lipstick on. Oh well. I think I'll survive. So I think I'm done with my makeup. I didn't do much today because it's just basic. Maybe I'll jazz it up a little bit. So they're like, oh my gosh, why would Simon do this? So then they start looking into Simon a little bit more. And the hacker sister starts looking into, into some of the other things that he has posted and done on the internet. And she finds out that Simon has been posting on like a Reddit thread, like kind of terroristic threats saying like, oh, school shootings, they're so awesome, but he's like, those kids deserved it. Bullies, da-da-da-da. Just kill them all. But then he's like, but also, like, have a little creativity. Like, everybody just comes in with guns. Like, do something a little more interesting. Like, if you're gonna, like, kill people or destroy their lives, then at least be creative about it. So that's when they start to think, like, oh, he's trying to be creative and destroy the lives of his bullies. And then you come to over the course of the story, like other details emerge that he had a crush on the popular girl, and she, like, they were talking 3 years ago. They were talking and getting close, but then she ended up getting together with the boyfriend that was slightly abusive. So, like, Simon was all butthurt about that. Like, she picked him over me. So he had animosity against her. I forget why he was upset with everybody else, but there was a reason he was supposed to be on the homecoming court, but the baseball player, like, did something that, like, messed up his chance to be on the homecoming court, or, like, blocked him from being invited to something. So he was pissed at the baseball player. And then he didn't like the valedictorian. He had issue with her. I don't recall. But then he also had some personal issue with the he was going to apply to be in Model UN. He wanted to participate in Model UN, but he had to turn in the application by a certain date, and she told him the wrong due date for the paperwork, and so he didn't make it into Model UN, and he assumed she did it on purpose to keep him out. That wasn't true. She legitimately thought it was that date and told him that date when it was the wrong date. She didn't do it on purpose, but he thought she did it on purpose. So he had issue with everybody, and I forget why he had issue with the delinquent drug dealer kid. Did they used to be friends, and then I don't know, some reason where he was like, they were all bullies and they all ruined my life. And so he, as it turns out, he planned everything and killed himself. Spoiler alert, he killed himself. He put the peanut oil in his water to kill himself in a way that would make them murder suspects and in turn ruin their lives. That was the plan all along. And these 4 kids, they eventually figured it out thanks to, like, the hacker sister and the investigative reporter that they contacted also helped, and, like, the baseball player's cousin or whatever who was a police officer and all of that. And, like, at one point, they all looked like they had done it, and then, like, they were suspicious of each other and weren't sure. At one point, the delinquent was actually arrested for, like, 2 weeks and put in a juvenile detention center because they thought it was him. This whole detail, I almost forgot. So at one point, they found drugs and a laptop with, like, files about everybody on it. They found those things in the delinquent's house. So they're like, it was you. Like, you're dealing drugs. You have the laptop with all this information about people. Like, you're the one who killed Simon because, whatever. So they were like, how did this stuff get in your house? Because this stuff wasn't in your house. It's been, like, 2 months. Like, Simon's dead. So, like, there had to have been an accomplice, because how else did the drugs and the laptop get into your house? Because it wasn't there last week. Now it's there, and it's evidence that you're the murderer. So they're all just like, there has to be a person involved, like a partner. And it wasn't the car driver person, because the car driver was just like some rando that he paid to come and create a fender bender distraction. So then they start trying to figure out, why did this happen? Who's involved? Who's the second person? And Simon had, like, one friend, this goth girl, who was, like, in love with him and, like, did whatever he wanted. So they thought it was her. So they ended up befriending her. And, like, as it turns out, it wasn't her, but she did she also figured out what was happening and couldn't say anything because the actual accomplice was threatening her. And so, like, she figured it out and he was threatening her. So she finally confessed because she's like, I can't take it anymore. I know Simon did this and I know all of y'all are innocent and that this person is actually guilty, but he's threatening to, like, kill me and, like, do all this stuff. And so while it turns out that the princess girl, the popular girl, comes over to her house and she's like, we know you know something. Please tell us. Like, we need to get the delinquent kid out of jail and you're the one who can help us. Please tell us. She's like, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. But then she finally breaks down and was like, it was your boyfriend. So the accomplice was the abusive boyfriend. As it turns out, he knew all along that she cheated on him and was just like plotting revenge on her for like the last couple of months, like all summer. And Simon had been planning this all summer and somehow they connected. It's explained in the story, but I don't remember that detail. Somehow they connected and he's like, I want to bring these people down. And he's like, I want to bring her down. Let's plan this so that she looks like the murderer. So they planned it. Like, he had his plan to, like, ruin her, and he had his plan to ruin all four of them, and they bring it together. And he was the boyfriend, the abusive boyfriend was like, after Simon died, he did all these things, like he was still posting on the Reddit, or not the Reddit feed, he was still posting on the gossip channel. He planted the drugs in the delinquent's house. He pretended to be surprised and punch a hole in the wall whenever she confessed to cheating on him. It was all an act in order to make them look guilty and ruin their lives because he was an a-hole. And that's how it all came together. And they somehow recorded him, like, he showed up. That's right. He showed up while the goth girl and the popular girl were talking, and she was, like, saying everything. He showed up, and he's like, hey, we need to talk. And, like, he comes in, and she, like, the ex-girlfriend hides and records the conversation. And he's like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And she's like, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore. Like, people are getting hurt. And he's like, everybody got hurt. Simon's dead, and da-da-da-da. So she recorded it, and so they had evidence to prove that he was the one. It was him. It was Simon. He ended up being arrested and put on trial. The 4 kids in the detention ended up getting exonerated. And then, of course, we had a little subplot of a romance, of course. And the delinquent and the valedictorian ended up a couple. So why, like, during the story, they got closer and closer and they became a couple. But then when he went to jail, he's like, I don't want to have anything to do. Like, you should not be with me. You're a valedictorian and I'm a criminal. Like, no. So they broke up. But then once he was exonerated and they figured out that it was the abusive boyfriend and Simon actually killed himself and all of that, he was exonerated. They ended up back together happily ever after. The popular girl realized that her boyfriend was an abusive jerk, and like she cut off her hair because he loved her hair, would never let her cut her hair. So she like chopped off her hair and like changed her style, and like, you know, now she's free and happy and realizes that she was in a dangerous situation and now she's better. The baseball player came out, and his dad was like really upset about it, but his mom and his grandma were super supportive. So like eventually dad came around, they met his boyfriend. He still ended up getting a scholarship to play ball at one of the schools. That turned out well. The valedictorian ended up losing her chemistry credit, but like still like everything graduated. I don't think she was valedictorian, but she still made it into her college of choice. Like, everything came together. Everything came together at the end, which is lovely. Yeah, I really liked it. Apparently, there's a sequel called Another One of Us is something. Hold on, I'm coming to it. One of Us is Next. It says it's a sequel to One of Us is Lying, but the end of this book has like the first couple of chapters and it's all new characters. I don't know if they know each other, if it's in the same world, or how they interconnect. And then there's a third one to two can keep a secret. I don't know what that story is either. I don't know if I'm going to read the sequel. I did like this story. It was a fun mystery. It unraveled nicely. It was told from everyone's point of view. So some of it was there. Okay, I'm going to tell you all their names now. Let's do it. So Bronwyn was the valedictorian, and then Cooper was the baseball player. Addie was the popular girl, and Nate was the delinquent. And then Simon, of course, was the kid who died. And so it's every few chapters, or every chapter it switches to a different character. Like this is Addie. She tells a few pages, and then it talks about Nate, and then it gives like the date and the time, so you can kind of keep track as things go, how they solve things, how they figure things out. So I loved that. I loved how everybody had a different, every different character was telling the story from their point of view. But the story kept going. So it wasn't like the same chunk of story told from all four perspectives. You only saw this chunk from this person, this chunk from this person, but it was an entire timeline. I love multi-perspective stories. This one was done really well. The four characters had four different voices, which was really cool. Author did a good job with that. Pacing was beautiful. It unraveled beautifully. Cool twist at the end with it actually being Simon committing suicide in a manner that was unique and actually was like a terrorist attack, as you might say. Like he was saying in his Reddit, it's like, be creative if you're going to destroy somebody's life. I did really like it. However, I will say that it was a little too fictional. I don't really like that phrase, but I didn't like how it was a little bit too loose ends, and it was a little bit too four teenagers coming together and solving a murder mystery without the help of anybody because the police were bumbling and the investigative reporters were bumbling and the parents were making it hard on them. It was a little bit too cliche of like the kids figured it out and all the grown-ups were useless. I get it. That's a typical trope for high school teenage reading, and it wasn't done in a cartoonish cliche way. It was just a little bit too much. Just a little tiny bit. Like bring it down a little bit, maybe involve some more adults a little bit more realistically. I get it. Adults make mistakes too, but I wish that there would have been a little bit more of adults that were coming to the aid of these children. They each had lawyers, their parents were supportive, but they were barely in it. And it was just these group of teenagers that were sneaking out at all hours of the night and finding out information that like it's unrealistic that a teenager would really be able to find that out. But all that pushed aside, all those minor things that were a little bit, in my opinion, loved the story. Great mystery, great pacing, great characters, solved at the end. Gotta love it. I would give it an 8 out of 10. Definitely recommend. If you have read it, let me know what you thought at the end. Did you see it coming? Again, I had a spoiler alert, so I knew it was Simon that had committed suicide the whole time. But I'm curious, if you didn't know and you read it, did you see it coming? Did you figure it out? How were you surprised at the end? Have you read any of the sequels? If you have, let me know. Should I give them a read? Tell me what you think. Yeah. So add some comments below and like this video if you enjoyed my summary and opinions of it. And then my makeup look today, just basic. I'm just going out to run some errands, so I didn't do anything. I did add a little sparkle to my eyes. I need to go get lipstick. But other than that, this is just my everyday look. I didn't do anything special today, but the book was special. So that's it. That's the end. Like my video. Check out some of my other videos. Follow me, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. And I hope I will see you again very soon. I'll post another video as soon as I can. I have a couple more books to make videos for, so keep watch. And as always, stay beautiful inside and out. Bye.